Hey guys, how's it going? It's Louis here from Singularity Film, and in today's video we're going to be colour grading some of our DJI Mavic Mini 2 footage. So we're going to be enlisting the help of Moss, who's going to be taking our boring, flat DJI Mavic Mini 2 raw footage and turning it into really professional, cinematic looking video. So without further ado, we're going to jump straight in.
So we've been out flying with the Mavic Mini 2. I'm sure you know it's the cheapest, lightest drone that DJI do at the moment. And the results you can get are amazing if you know how to grade it. So let's just dive straight into it. We've just shot this image of this beautiful BMW on a country road. But as you can see, it's a very flat image. One of the things that most people overlook is where your eye is drawn to in the image, and it's the most important thing. So if you look here, your eye is drawn to this massive patch of dead grass and not the car. This is a car commercial, so we want to get your eye drawn into the subject. So let's start there. So first things first, we're going to add some contrast into the image. I'm just going to bump that up. We're looking mainly at the road and the car now. We're not too worried about the other areas. Second thing, make a new node, get some saturation into that image. We're going to go for quite a punchy look, and then we're going to take out the colours later on. So there you go, the road's looking great, but your eye is still massively drawn to this hot spot in the middle. So let's deal with that now. So what we're going to do is we're going to mask out our car to start with. We're just going to use the spline tool, pen tool, sorry, just draw around that car. We'll zoom in. Make a rough shape. It doesn't have to be exact. We're so far away in this shot. Perfect. And then we're just going to soften that, and we're going to bring the mask inside and outside very slightly. Next thing we're going to do, we're just going to track that through the whole clip. So there we go. And we're going to invert that mask, and that will mean we're just affecting the background. So we're going to drag the highlights down. We only want the highlights to be on the car at the moment. There we go. So let's just do a quick before and after. So there you go. Your car starts to stand out over the background. Okay, so your car's now standing out, but your eye's still getting lost in this bunch of dead grass. So we're just going to mask out the road. Again, doing this super quickly. Then we're going to invert that mask and drag the highlights down even further. And as you lower the exposure of the background, you're also going to lose contrast, so you need to replace that. They kind of work in tangent. Brilliant, that's looking much better. We'll just soften that mask as it's too harsh at the moment. So drag the outside in. The inside, and then we're going to track that mask back. So again, do a quick before and after. There you go, your eye's kind of lost in the image, you can't really make out the car. Much more balanced, your eye's drawn towards the road and the car. So we're going to make a new node after our first contrast and saturation, and we're just going to play with the colors. So we want to get rid of this green. We want a clean color palette. We're going to get rid of some of that green and make that yellow using our color warper tool, and we're just going to make the yellow slightly red and just compress that there. And then we're going to make our blues teal, have that classic orange and teal look. This is a car commercial after all, so we want that nice cinematic orange teal look. Looking great, and then I'm going to add in even more orange into the midtones. Cool, really starting to look good. Before, after, before, after. Play that through. Looking fantastic. The only thing I just want to make sure is there enough contrast. So we're looking at our scopes over here, and obviously it's quite a dark image, but we do have some blacks just creeping in. So I think that little boost of contrast we've just made is really helping. We can also adjust our pivot just to make sure that we are keeping that contrast in the shadows. There we go, looking really good. Lastly, as always, with these Mavic Mini 2, just give it a little bit of sharpening, not too much, because you'll bring in some noise, just a touch of sharpening there. So again, you can zoom right in and see what that's doing. So before, after, looks loads sharper. And there we have it. Before, so flat, your eye gets lost, it just looks like a miserable day. Afterwards, it's much more cinematic and your eye is drawn to the focal point, which is obviously the road and the car. So the first thing we're going to do to this image is, because we're pointing directly at the sun, is bring back some of the highlights, some of the data in the highlights. So we're just going to do that by bringing our gain wheel down very slightly on the first node, just so you can see that the data is just coming back. So the second node is to add saturation. This image is looking a bit flat and a bit lifeless, probably just the limitations of the sensor. So we're just going to add in some more saturation by just simply bringing it up to about 60, something like that. So now that looks great, but we need to add in some contrast. So we're just going to use the contrast slider there. Just a touch, tiny bit, that looks perfect. And now this is the most important part of the grading process. We want to balance this image. So at the moment, your eye is just drawn to that massive white spot in the middle. So what we're going to do is just to bring in the contrast back into the sky. So we're going to up the contrast so it looks all blown out and horrible, but then we're going to use the pivot wheel to just bring back that. So now it looks nice and contrasty. Something like that. But obviously that's negatively affected the bottom half of the image, so we're just going to use a mask. So bring in your mask and just feather that out nicely, so that then it's only affecting the top half of the image. And you can see the before and after. We're going to add a little bit more contrast into that. I think we can get away with a bit more punch and a tiny bit more saturation just on that top half of the image. Looking great. And again, before, your eye's drawn to that white spot, and now after, much more balanced. The image feels more natural. But we need to do that again to the bottom half of the image. So for this one, we're going to bring in some highlights. It's much too dark. You can't really see what's going on. So bring that right up, and again, mask out the top half of the image. For this one, we're just going to use this gradient tool here. It's a quick way of doing that for that one. Spin that round. Just so you don't get any highlights there. Perfect. One quick before and after. There you go, amazing. Now the contrast and tone and exposure of that image is much better balanced. Your eye is not sort of drawn to that middle white spot just as much. You can sort of see the trees and the colour in the sky. Looking much better. So lastly, for the effect, we want your eye to be drawn to where the drone is going. You can see this footage is just tracking forward, and we want the viewer to be drawn into that central point. So we're going to add a vignette. So we're going to add a circle mask. We're going to feather that right out, just bring that to a slight oval, and then simply drag down your gain. And before you do that, you want to invert the mask with this tool here. So then it's only affecting the outside portion of that image. So drag down your gain. It's personal preference, don't go too mad. But then you can see your eyes drawn much more into the center of the image, which is where the drone is going. Perfect. And then next step is to deal with these horrible center limitations in the highlights. You see where it rolls off? It's just so abrupt. It doesn't look like film. It doesn't look cinematic. It looks like cheap video, which is essentially what this drone is, but we want this to look cinematic. So the way we're going to hack this is we're going to use the glow feature in Resolve to apply a glow. So then, obviously that looks terrible, but we're going to tone it down. So on select output, choose glow alone, and then you can adjust the threshold to just affect those highlights. And the horizontal vertical, we're going to make it go slightly more horizontal, so it gives it that kind of anamorphic feel, kind of fake anamorphic feel. Then we'll go back to the full image, and then you go before and after. Still slightly too much, so we're just going to tone that down very slightly, and then tone down the brightness quite a bit. And basically, that is just softening those edges on that highlight. There you go. Before, looks a bit muddy. Afterwards, looks much more cinematic. And we can even colorize that to make it look even more like it's part of the image. There you go. Again, before, after, looking loads better. Last thing, we're going to sharpen this image. So again, shot on a tiny, tiny sensor, and we're just going to make the most of that definition in the details. So zoom right in, sharpen tab, select sharpen. We're going to use about 45 on the radius and about 30 on scaling. There you go. Soft, sharp, and no extra noise. If you've got the pro version of Resolve, you can take out that noise now, but we're just doing this on the free version. So there you go. So that's how you grade your DJI drone footage to be slightly more cinematic. So before, flat, afterwards, loads of definition. So before, your eye was kind of drawn to the sky, there's nothing really going on, there's no definition. Afterwards, the image is much more balanced, it's got loads of contrast, and your eye is drawn to the center, which is where the drone is going, which is what you want to lead your viewer to think, what's going to happen next? Build that anticipation. That's what cinema is all about. So you lead your viewer into the center in a lovely cinematic image.
So there you have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and hopefully you learned a thing or two about taking your boring in-camera drone footage to the next level, making it look much more professional and more cinematic. If you haven't hit that like button or subscribe down below yet, please make sure you do so now, and let us know in the comment section below if you'd like to see more videos like this. Thank you guys very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.